Welcome to another episode of If I Had the Pen, where I discuss stories, scenes, characters that I feel were not executed well. Then I fix them. Sometimes within the confines of what the original is giving me to work with, sometimes I do a full rework. I spent some time trying to figure out what I wanted to do next video-wise. I tend not to force myself to rush out videos if I'm not feeling it creatively. So an idea came to me. Aside from the Man of Steel and both versions of Justice League, I really don't like the Snyderverse movies much. Most of which I couldn't even be bothered to watch. When I saw BVS back then, it must have been the angriest I've ever left a theater. As a fan of both Superman and Batman, I was furious. Anyway, I want to tell you something I've been telling my friends for years. My version of the Snyderverse movie slate. Now, before I get into that, just a quick piece of business as always. If you like the way I approach writing, check out my novel Wolvon, which is available on Amazon in both ebook and paperback formats. Links for both formats are in the description. There's a free preview available in the ebook link. Just click the image of the book. What I want to look at now is what WB did that broke their cinematic universe. There was this series of movies that start from Man of Steel ending at Justice League. Then I'll show you the plan I would have done if I had the pen. Back when WB started this cinematic universe with Man of Steel, I was glad that I got a good Superman movie. Even though, to be honest, some of that Snyder dirt filter really gets on my nerves. However, I understood how some people need that dark tone and feel and appearance. There was a bit of cynicism in the film's writing that was something I could do without. Yet I understood that there are people that have this false view of Superman, thinking traditional Superman is boring. Which is just Morse code to me that they've never read a Superman comic ever. If they did, they would have run into several stories that did the character justice. The average Hollywood shithead thinks with this same wrong mindset. So they needed this more darker looking, cynical vibe. Hope is the real vibe of Superman. Home versus heritage. A person who absolute power did not corrupt absolutely. Something that has taken a back seat to this evil Superman injustice bullshit. This Tom King hot garbage. Something the idiot that is Zack Snyder started to push. Anyway, as a rookie Superman movie, it manages to hit just well enough. So as a starting point, it was good enough. I could do without the race swaps, one of which is just more unexplained Hollywood ginger hate. There were Easter eggs for things, but they didn't have that same ballsy commitment that Marvel did with the Nick Fury scene in Iron Man. I know there was supposed to be a Batman scene, but it got phased out. Very non-committal, but WB's balls tend to shrink if it's not Batman or Batman adjacent. Despite a casting change here or there, it stays as is. Henry Cavill is Superman, and this movie started that for me as well. So we had thought that we were getting Man of Steel 2. Hell, the Comic-Con panel was called Man of Steel 2. Yet, here we go with that Batman tomfoolery. They started reading a quote from Batman The Dark Knight Returns, the quote that Batman says to Superman at the near end of the book. No, I'm not repeating it for you, look it up. So already that was a red flag for me. The story is a Batman Elseworld story. Good for Batman, but not so good for Superman. With WB's past history of just over-pushing Batman and ignoring everything else, I knew they didn't get Superman. Even though he started this Snyderverse, he was about to take a backseat to Batman. Instead of capitalizing on the success with their globally recognized superhero and one of the big three, they were once again treating the Superman brand like shit and going back to Batman again. So instead of having both IPs be healthy, they would stifle one to rely on the same one they always do. So instead of giving Superman more character development with a Man of Steel sequel, this mutated into Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. I knew it then, and most of us did. This was going to be a mess. Not only will Superman get no character development to become the Superman we all know, we're stuffing Batman into the mix to undermine Superman, showing a complete lack of confidence even in success. The idiots at WB want to be where Marvel was at without putting the work in. Something they just failed at by going for BVS so soon. A decision they will never recover from. Now BVS comes out to some success, but the reviews are not favorable. There's no way to spin this. The movie was a mess. You had Superman vs. Batman, which was what everybody came to see. Now you had Wonder Woman, because DC has no patience, and mini appearances by the rest of the Justice League. An injustice foreshadowing for Superman, who hasn't even learned how to be Superman yet. Also an unearned Death of Superman adaptation to make this even more unfocused. So what we had by the end of this movie was Superman dead, kill Happy Batman who has tunnel vision, Lex Jolly Rancher Jr., Bun Flash and the gang, Gal's Wonder Woman. Oh, and a rejected Michael Bay Ninja Turtle design some CG artist had in his hard drive that he forgot to erase, along with his questionable porn collection. None of which really made good in the long term. A glorified clip show where context makes everything worse. Now, how did they follow up this haphazard rush to get to Justice League? With Suicide Squad. God, I wish I was making that up. I would ask why, but I know why. Because Batman, that's why. Batman adjacent, to be precise. And what should be a Justice League-focused slate, we don't get Aquaman or even a Flash film. We get a Flash and Batman appearance in Suicide Squad, but who cares? It added nothing. At this point, it doesn't matter if the movie is good or bad. It's irrelevant and should not exist at this point in time. It adds nothing for Justice League, so I won't waste my time on it. And then we have Wonder Woman. If there was one character that benefited in the short term from BVS, it was Gal's Wonder Woman, even if she had no business being in that movie. There was some buzz generated from her fight scenes with Doom Turtle. So I will confess, I never watched this film, but I have seen spoiler reviews for it. It was mid at best, but it had its moments. Had a weak third act and wasted Ares. Chris Pine does his best Steve Rogers impression by the end. People seem to like this movie, and mind you, Jeff Johns fixed the script and Patty Jenkins just followed it. She was not the mastermind behind this movie, if rumors are accurate. Given how bad Wonder Woman 1984 was when she wrote it, I tend to believe that rumor. Regardless, this movie is in the right spot and adds to Justice League, although Diana being a quitter and skipping WW2 doesn't really sit right with me. Still, people seem to like this film, so a rare win for the slate. Now, Justice League Whedon Cut. Basically a Frankenstein hack job of a movie, started by Snyder, finished by Whedon. With multiple WB executives all with the same level of power, flip-flopping things the entire time. It seems like the suits were just preparing scapegoats and getting a last big check before AT&T stepped in. What can I say about this movie that hasn't already been said? For me, it's another clip show and a mess. A tonal shift that comes out of nowhere. A rejection of a plan past this point. Darkseid is just name-dropped and Steppenwolf is just a guy that's trying to get his old job back. No steps were really laid out besides a little of the mother box stuff, but they basically needed a director's cut of BVS just to even remotely get that going. Outside of the Superman scenes, I honestly don't care about this movie. The team just shows up, and even the Trinity isn't fleshed out at all. The lack of preparation leading up to this point is all over this film. It flopped hard. The true nail in the coffin of the Snyderverse that everyone saw coming. Now here's what I would have done if I had the pen. I would be shrinking the amount of movies to 4 instead of 5. WB never understood that they had a cinematic event that they could do in less time, which was Superman and Batman together in live action for the very first time. People had been waiting for generations for this to happen, in live action. It doesn't need to be a versus film. A proper team-up is more than enough. You don't need to divide your fan base right out the gate. Give everyone something to celebrate instead. Give both Superman and Batman their films to prepare us for this cinematic event. Since I consider Man of Steel a decent starting point, aside from removing any race and gender swaps, everything is practically the same. Audiences ultimately responded well to this movie, so in the end it stays relatively untouched. Now for Man of Steel 2, let's go over the bullet points of what needs to be in the movie for continuity reasons. First bullet point is Lex Luthor. This will be his introduction to the DCU and the introduction of Kryptonite to this continuity. Mostly from the terraformed land from Man of Steel 1. I don't want Eisenberg to be Lex. He sucked and even Snyder knew it because he made him the character's son to deflect criticism. So I'm just going to cast Michael Rosenbaum to return to the role. People like him as Lex, so I get a guy that knows what he's doing, and I can have him bulk up a bit to get him closer to comic Lex. Also, the other villain that will be fighting Superman directly is Metallo. Another bullet point is developing Henry's Superman. Henry certainly has the mentality of the character in real life, so letting him be more positive and hopeful should be an easy layup. Whilst the cynicism of Man of Steel 1 will still have its place, its goal is to work opposite to a more hopeful Superman. I want to focus on his connection to the people of Metropolis. I want to have a scene that has Superman helping first responders save people from the wreckage of Metropolis. They were reluctant to trust him at first, but put that to the side when someone is in immediate danger. From there, they work together with Superman and begin to trust him. Lois covers the story for the Daily Planet. Lex's jealousy is mixing with his fear that mankind will rely on Superman far too much and refuse to grow. Lex's obsession with removing Superman not just for his shady business, but for his ego as well, which will eventually lead him to make a man stronger than steel, Metallo. Powered by the kryptonite, Lex discovered is Superman's weakness. These are classic stories and themes between both characters that work for a reason. Also, I want to use the Daily Planet to kind of plant some seeds for the Batman film. talking about Lex's plan to expand his business into Gotham City. Now, at the end of the film, Metallo is beaten with a mild assist from Lois Lane as part of their strengthening relationship. Don't worry, Clark leads the scorecard and rescues by a country mile. Lex manages to keep his involvement with Metallo hidden, so he escapes jail time since Clark can't prove anything. There's a face-to-face moment and a quick discussion about their different philosophies at the end of the film. Lex Luthor says, "Look around you. Metropolis is guided and shaped by men of vision. My vision. No one in this city or planet has the money, grit, and intelligence to shape tomorrow as I do. The future should be shaped by a human that stands above the rest, not an alien from a dead world." Superman tells Lex, "You may think you have the right to look down at people from your high tower and dictate how the world should move, but you don't. Tomorrow is shaped by all of us being the best versions of ourselves. As long as I'm around, I'll keep everyone's tomorrow safe from men like you who wish to exploit their future." After Superman leaves, Lex is irritated and decides to take a break from Metropolis. He decides to turn his attention to Gotham and calls for his private jet to be ready for him. We see Henry Cavill's Superman pay homage to Christopher Reeve by doing the ending flyby scene in space. As he smiles to the camera, the classic Superman theme plays in the background to close the movie. After the credits roll, we get our after-credit scene. We see the location is Gotham City. A lone criminal with a gun is running in fear into an alleyway in Crime Alley. He's scared and the music is low and eerie. The criminal is jumping at any sound he hears. He fires off several rounds into the shadows. There's a short pause as the shots don't seem to hit anything. The criminal hears a strange noise above him. The music slowly starts to get louder. The rumblings of that Batman '89 theme picking up. The criminal looks up and sees Ben Affleck's Batman for the first time, coming straight down towards the camera in the criminal's point of view. The Batman '89 theme hitting its high note as the scene comes to a close. Now on to the Batman movie. I think Ben was onto something when he wanted Deathstroke to be the main threat in his Batman film that we never got. He's a great choice to test this Batman both physically and in ways mentally as well. Ben's Batman had the best fighting style of any live-action iteration WB has made. The fight we could have gotten between these two gives me goosebumps. So, since the movie had no name, I'll just call it Batman Termination for now. So the bullet points I want to hit are, Lex is in Gotham to expand his business, except Wayne Enterprises is his top competitor. Lex is looking to play the long game and get some of Wayne Enterprises' board members on his side. They help facilitate a meeting between him and Bruce. Lex tries to sell Bruce on the idea that he wants to enter some joint ventures with him. Bruce declines Lex's offer on principle given the rumors of Lex's business being on the shady side. He's also suspicious that this might be some ploy to take his company later on down the road, which he keeps to himself. The conversation ends. Lex isn't pleased but doesn't show it. He politely says goodbye. Once Lex gets back to the building he acquired by buying one of Gotham's lesser companies, he tells his aide Mercy to send an offer to the assassin codenamed Deathstroke. He'll pay a substantial price to remove the two board members he can't pay off, Lucius Fox and Bruce Wayne. Should Batman interfere, he'll issue a bonus for his death as well. You can pretty much imagine how this movie would go. Batman forced to protect Lucius and himself 2 times over from Deathstroke, with several attempts on both their lives with some close calls. Deathstroke revealing more of his techniques and arsenal with every encounter, even forcing Batman to flee at one point. I definitely want a scene where Bruce is forced to fight Deathstroke as Bruce Wayne, trying his best to survive while not trying to seem too competent at fighting. I also want to have a nice little bonus sequence of Batman vs. Joker and Harley where Joker escapes, leaving Harley behind to be caught by Batman, just to set up the Suicide Squad stuff down the road in another phase. This should be early in the movie to start things off hot. I also want to bring up that Dick Grayson is in this universe and is simply on vacation. Bruce asks Alfred if Dick packed his best suit, and Alfred telling him that he did, also implying that Dick is Robin already and isn't a kid in this universe. The first encounter with Deathstroke happens soon after. Deathstroke makes his first attempt to kill both Bruce and Lucius at a gala event, which leads to our first Batman vs. Deathstroke fight that doesn't end very well for Batman. After that, Batman suspects that Lex might be the man that placed the hit on him. He looks to figure out Lex's plan, which starts leading him to find connections between Lex and several members of Wayne Enterprises' board of directors. This should give us a chance to see this Batman's detective skills and see him creatively using his dual identity to win the day. Near the end of the film, Batman uses himself as Bruce Wayne to lure Deathstroke into a trap. A little bit of Batman's prep time at play, as he's developed counters for Deathstroke's weapons and techniques, learning from their previous encounters throughout the film. After Deathstroke is beaten, he refuses to name his client, deciding to take jail time instead. So Lex is stopped again, but this time by Batman. Just like in Metropolis, Lex hit his tracks well, except this time not as well as he'd like. something Batman insinuates when he pays him a visit. After Batman leaves, Lex is by himself, having been bested by both Superman and Batman. We end the movie with a shot of Batman in an iconic pose, standing on a gargoyle statue as he surveys Gotham. A crime is in progress and Batman gets back to work, swooping down into action as the movie's theme plays in the background. For the after-credits scene, Lex was going to meet with his lawyer to figure out what he would do if he's forced to go to court. Lex's lawyer begins speaking of something else, that he has a master with access to advanced technology that can help him bring his enemies to his knees. Clearly this man is not his lawyer. Lex asks who the man is. He says to simply call him Desaad. He places a mysterious device on Lex's desk, a holographic display of the suit of armor that will become the Lexo suit. Lex wants to know what the catch is. Desaad tells him to kill Superman, then prepare the Earth for his master's arrival. If Lex is successful, he can have the Earth when his master's done with it. Lex asks him who his master is. Desaad tells him all in due time. He asks if Lex agrees to the partnership, Lex taking another look at the image of the suit and agrees. Desaad exits the room with a smile on his face, telling Lex he will keep in touch. Lex stares at the suit more, his mind filled with thoughts on how to improve it. He opens a drawer in his desk. A lead-lined case is inside. He opens it, revealing a rock of kryptonite. The scene ends. Well, that took some time, but I think it was worth it. So that's it for now. I just wanted to paint the picture of a better, more focused DCU movie slate, leading us into a Superman and Batman team-up movie that plants the seeds for a Justice film down the road. I won't get to the crossover movie in this video since that's too big to speed through and this vid is long enough. So maybe I can cover that separately another time. Well, that concludes this episode of If I Had the Pen. So like, subscribe, share the video if you want to. Also, if you want to support me directly since I don't have monetization or a Patreon page, pick up my book, which if you like this vid, I'm sure you'll enjoy. See you out there, and remember, story first.